Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome everyone to the review of X-Men 97 Season 2, the 3-episode premiere that dropped on Disney Plus, and this comes to us courtesy of Marvel Animation, an animated series that's a revival of X-Men the Animated Series, which ran from 1992 to 1997, which was revived just a couple of years ago with X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. The 90s X-Men series, it goes without saying, that was my entire teenage years. Literally. It premiered when I was 13 and it ended when I was 18. So my entire teenage years was X-Men. I loved X-Men, the animated series. Coming off of being a fan of the comic books, which I read, and being a fan of them, I absolutely cannot express how essential that show was as a teenager in the 90s, and watching the comic book pages come to life in animation every single week. It really, I don't know. I like I said, I can't put it into words. I just loved it. It's nothing like it. And my God, that theme music, which is still used today, still hits. It hits every single episode. You know, with Disney Plus, and you get that skip intro feature every time a show episode begins. That's non-existent to me. I do not skip when it comes to the intro to an X-Men episode. It's nostalgic, but at the same time it brings a lot of joy to characters that I grew up reading and then watching, and then going through the 20th Century Fox, that is X-Men films, live action films that, they were what they were. I enjoyed them for what they were at the time, but it's something about that show that it never was out of date. It still holds up for me. I still go back and watch certain episodes because it wasn't your typical cartoon. It was truly an animated series. It was a show that, I'm not going to say just for adults, because at its core is a cartoon, but the X-Men did something in comics that a lot of comic book characters, a lot of comic book runs didn't do, and it appealed to an audience of everyone. Now granted, everyone loves your typical Spider-Man, your in DC with Superman and Batman and all that good stuff, Justice League, and all that was great, but the subject matter of X-Men, spanning back to when they first graced the comics, it really was a social commentary and groundbreaking in so many ways. For me, growing up as a black kid in the South, it really spoke to the civil rights movement, going through the Jim Crow eras, even though I didn't live in that era. My parents did, so I was familiar with it. I knew about all the struggles that blacks had to deal with, or still is, unfortunately, in this country. And the X-Men reflected that. And it just connects. It connects. And even now you can incorporate that with the LGBTQ community, with their struggles and everything, and how you can relate to that and other communities as well, and that's what makes the X-Men so special. And so when they announced that they were going to revive this series, I was very, very skeptical about it, and because this is one of those precious properties that you really don't want to mess up. Now, the movies are the movies. You know, you take that for what it is. It's not really there to send a social message. It's there to entertain like any other comic book film. It didn't really dive into all of the meat of the X-Men, that the interconnections of the X-Men, how this character is related to this character, or this character is the son of that character, or the brother of that character, and they don't even know it. And the journey to find out that they do have a relation and stuff like that, and all the other stuff, it didn't have that in the films. I hope that when Marvel Studios begin their mutant saga, that we do get that. But even if you don't, you still have this. And X-Men 97 did that. The first season I thought was excellent. Uh, it had a great mix of nostalgia from the 90s. It still kept that same feel, that same flow, the same pacing and tone that we were familiar with back in the 90s, yet giving it a kind of modern twist and feel as well. And it was a great blend, seamlessly, I might add, that it works. It just works. And season 2 had a lot of question marks around it, even though season 1 was dare I say, pretty much perfect in my eyes. Season 2, I had question marks because we got a new head writer now, you know, a new showrunner after the exit of Bo DeMeo for reasons, you know, we're not going to get into. And I was curious if we were going to get a different tone, a different feel. Is it still going to have that same magic that was captured in the first season of X-Men 97? Well, we jump in with 3 episodes, the premiere. And that's something that was somewhat of a surprise because I didn't know that. I thought we were just going to get 1 episode, maybe 2. I didn't think we were going to get a third. And that was indeed a pleasant surprise. The first episode was entitled Days of Past Future, which is a flip on the comic book run and the film Days of Future Past. Episode 2 was entitled A Force to Be Reckoned With, and episode 3, Rise of Apocalypse Part 1. Just to give you a little backstory, season 1 of X-Men 97 ended with our mutants being scattered across time after them defeating Magneto and destroying Asteroid M. It teased that Apocalypse will be a big part of season 2, which brought a lot of excitement to everyone who is a fan of this show. The series has never been one to waste time. This show never wastes time. We get right into the action, the story, and the drama that every 30-minute episode of this show has done in the past. So we kick off with episode 1, Days of Past Future, and we look ahead to the far future where Cyclops, Jean Grey, and the others are thrown into the future where they meet Mother Oskina and her clan. And here's a spoiler, a little spoiler, in case you don't know who she is. She is actually Rachel Summers, the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey. It isn't revealed, at least not in these first 3 episodes, but I'm assuming maybe later on in the season, or it could be in season 3 when we get that reveal. But she is actually their daughter and the brother of Nathan Summers, or Cable. And so this episode basically acts as the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, with the emphasis on Nathan Summers, who they sent to the future because of that biovirus that he had, and they meet up with him, and the reunion between him and his parents and this time displaced son that they have. Another little tidbit that I learned, didn't know this, Did you watch Obsession? I know millions have. There's a huge hit at the box office. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of my favorite movies of the year thus far. But the actor in that film, Bear, he's played by Michael Johnston. Michael Johnston voices young Nathan in this show. I believe that's him. I believe that's him. I know they got the same name. So I'm assuming it's him. But yeah, he voices young Nathan on this show. Anyways, I just wanted to give that nugget. I learned it. I got excited. So I figured I'll share that with you. But anyway, moving on. This reunion gives the episode all the hooks you need to enjoy this season, especially in light of the farewell uh, that we got last season between Scott and Jean and Cable. And so you have Forge and Bishop. They're still in the 90s and they're racing to the future and going through time to get the X-Men back to their proper timeline. And Forge, he manages to find them to immediately bring them back because he's in fear of breaking the timeline. But they being Scott and Jean, they convince him that they just need one more day. Just give me one day to say goodbye to their son, because they still have that trauma, that they had to give up their son and send him to the future in order to be cured of this virus. So this ultimately leads to them being captured. They have to fight off Apocalypse men, and they end up getting captured at one point, and insanity ensues in this episode. This episode was primarily based in the future, and that's what was unique about these first three episodes. Well, not unique, but I thought was a clever way of telling the story, because episode one took place in the future. Our second episode took place in I'm about to say the present, but in 1997, and the third episode takes place in the past. So it was a cool way to get us back refamiliar with our characters. And we flash forward to episode two. In episode two, entitled A Force to Be Reckoned With, this is where we find an adult Cable now, and he's recruiting Jubilee and Sunspot to join the new X-Force squad. And they had a cool thing that they did for the opening. We still got the same music. We still got the same theme song. But instead of the X-Men being displayed on in that little title sequence, we got X-Force. And along with X-Force in this episode, you also got you got X Factor, you got Generation X, there's X-Men. It's so many X's. I think my ex-girlfriend was in it. It was nothing but X's. That was in this episode. All of those factions. I thought that was awesome, man. Real cool to see X-Force get their own episode in this series. That was cool as well. This series was basically Jubilee's coming out party, man. She was a beast in this series. Displayed how much of a beast she is, and how the live action movies did her no justice, because she wasn't even in them. And Jubilee had cameos in that. I don't know how many X-Men movies we got from Fox, about 7 of them, and you never got to see Jubilee do her thing, but boy, she did her thing on this episode. Had a lot of fun with that. This episode was a nostalgia trip here, because this was 90s, being as though it was set in 97. It really gave us that 90s flair. The discourse between Cable and Jubilee, they're different philosophies. Jubilee is an X-Men. She's studying under Professor X, and he's more nonviolent. And you have Cable, who is by any means necessary here, and interrogating and killing people. And that's not the Jubilee way. That's not the X-Men way. And so very uncomfortable for her. She was not comfortable being a part of this X-Force and how they conduct their business. But this leads them to come in contact with X-Force. I'm sorry, X-Factor, who's working for the U.S. government, and they have different philosophies as well. I think they were utilized really well in this episode, and it makes sense. I was sitting there watching this, and I was like, man, it makes sense that they work for the government have this government sanctioned kind of injection into the X-Men universe here, uh, counterbalancing the X-Men and X-Force of this show, especially when you see how quickly they became pawns to the administration, and just overly sympathetic to mutant rights and things of that nature. And so, once again, the show is speaking on different levels, man. It's like they're playing chess while we're playing checkers in their storytelling philosophies here. And finally, we get to episode 3, and now we're back in the past, and it explores how the other half of the X-Men are getting along with a young Absonor. I could never say his name right, but a young Apocalypse before he became Apocalypse. And this gave us a different view, a different look at this villain that the X-Men had to contend with in the comics and in the original animated series from the 90s. We knew Apocalypse as an annihilator, wanted to rid mankind, he wanted to just rid the earth of mankind. That was it, and that's all we knew as this just villain, just super villain. Now we get him at his infancy stage, if you will, being the first mutant on Earth, and him dealing with that, him being the outsider and fighting against oppression himself, and seeing him at this level, knowing that eventually he will grow to be something of a god figure, is fascinating, and it's so unique how they're doing this. So not maybe unique is the wrong word I'm using here, or I should say interesting. I'll just stick on that. It's a very interesting way how they're telling Apocalypse story, because now you're making him somewhat of a sympathetic figure here in this show. And that quickly went away, though, as this episode went on. And so most of the X-Men have little more than window dressing in episode 3, but that hardly mattered when the emphasis was on the dynamic between Magneto and a young Apocalypse in this episode. And the rapport between the two characters is pretty much a thrill to watch. Is a very intriguing watch between these two, particularly thanks to the excellent writing on this show. Bo DeMeo, even though he was jettisoned from this show, he did write a few episodes of this second season before his untimely departure, and this was one of them. There was other writers on board, but he was also a contributor as well. But this was a very intriguing episode. Magneto clearly believes that he can kind of rewrite fate. He can change Apocalypse. I can get through to him. And shape his this powerful being into someone who can save mutant kind rather than oppress it. And so there's no concern about this chapter of the series being given enough breathing room. And so I'll say this much. Season 2 is off to a great start. I really enjoyed these first 3 episodes. My concerns going in about the showrunners changing and maybe some of the writing being changed, and will we get the same tone? I did notice somewhat of a change in these 3 episodes. It felt different, and I'm saying that very kindly. It's not bad. The change that I felt about it, it didn't feel like the first season. You can clearly see that there are 2 different showrunners between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 under Bo DeMeo, it felt like a just continuation from the 90s. It felt like that show can fit right into the 90s show. This season, it fits, of course, but it just has a different kind of tone and pace to it. It's weird. I can't put my finger on it. I really can't sit there and tell you, this character doesn't really e- emote like they did before, or the dialogue is a little off here, or whatever. It's nothing like that. Like I said, I can't put my finger on it. It's just a different feel. Now, this could be something subconscious in me, because I'm looking for a change, and I probably just projected that. So charge it to my brain. I don't. If you watched it and you didn't feel a difference, let me know. But I I felt like it was a little different, and I'm not saying that as a negative. It's still good. It's still X-Men. It's still X-Men 97, and it still feels like it's a part of this long story from the past 30 years. So no complaints on this end. I think we're off to a rip-roaring start. A lot of story has been set up here. A lot of conflict has been set up here. We got more mutants to deal with now, with X-Force coming into play, with X-Factor coming into play, with Generation X coming into play. It's so much that they're introducing just in these first 3 episodes that will have me anticipating every single week for an episode to drop. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but more importantly, I want to know, how did you feel about X-Men season, or X-Men 97 season 2, these first 3 episodes that dropped on Disney Plus? Did you enjoy it? Did you hop right back into the nostalgia trip, the great storytelling, the great animation, the amazing voice acting on this show? I don't think it gets talked about enough. This show has some of the best voice talent uh, of any animated show that comes to mind. I love the voice talent that they have assembled for this show. It is spot on perfect. Everybody knows their job. they know the assignment, and they do it phenomenally well. But I would like to hear from you on the KBRadioNetwork.com website, our website that you can subscribe and leave comments on. You can also leave comments and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the KB Radio Network channel as well. Don't forget about the KB Radio podcast that's on all podcast platforms. Don't forget about those 5 stars, reviews, and sharing the shows there. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we recapped X-Men 97 season 2, first 3 episodes, now available on Disney Plus for your viewing pleasure. I will be back every week to review every episode this year. I didn't do it last year, or what, 2 years ago, for the first season, and I regretted it every single week, because after every episode I wanted to talk about it. It was that good. We will not make that mistake this year, so be on the lookout for that every week after a new episode drops. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.